Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the organizers here for inviting me and with me the company Siemens. Siemens is, as many may not be real aware of, actually an Arctic company, I would state. We have been active in the Arctic countries like Canada, the United States, Russia, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and also here in Greenland for more than 100 years. Siemens is a very old company, and the foundation of this company is really to build infrastructure. So why is it important, and why do I think I was invited here today, was really to talk about what we see as necessary prerequisites to build up an industrialization. What does it need? What does it take? I have to get this one working. This is precisely a slide that I would have used has it been in Central Europe or parts of the US. As you can see, the pictures does not match what we have been talking about here the last 2 days of the prerequisites for the Arctics or for the solution needs for the Arctics. The first item up to the left is a working environment. This basically means that you have to make a picture of what kind of working places do you want to create, what is needed for people to move there, to get a job, and what kinds of jobs will there be. So in this case, there is for the Greenlandic challenges, it means fishing, it means tourism, and what we are going to discuss here today, minerals. So this is what I will try to stress on in this presentation here. The second picture you see is all about education. Yesterday we had some interesting views on what is needed to build up education locally, to inspire the youth to get educated and to help to get the society to a next level. Education is also vital very early in the development to find out what is needed and which education do we prioritize. You cannot do everything at one single time. The third bullet is what everyone hopes for, is that larger cities could be built, for instance, of tourism. For tourism most often comes where the nature is very beautiful, where there are hotels, as we had in the previous session, and where there are surroundings that makes it nice to visit there. This means also easy to travel there. That was in the previous session here discussed on the aviation. Larger cities is also a question of inhabitants. And being here 2 days now, I've got it's circled a bit about how many inhabitants do we have in the Arctic region. And if you want to talk growth, you need a lot of inhabitants. So larger cities is simply a necessity. And of course, then we have the whole items of households. Which picture should we put in here for an Arctic household? How should it look? It's not likely that it look like I've shown it on the photo here. And then with people inside, we also have to care about them. This means then if we are going to build up an industrialized society, we then also need healthcare and medical care. So in the infrastructure we want to create, we have to have healthcare as one of the major items in there in order to obtain a sustainable life. And most people here on Earth do want, if it's tourism or if it's the inhabitants themselves, want to be entertained. So also the entertainment has to be incalculated in building up such a society. And then, of course, mobility. I don't expect that many railroads in the Arctic region, actually. So also this photo would not shoot here. We saw in the discussions yesterday that harbors are needed, bigger harbors. We saw also bigger airports is needed, and the infrastructure that goes with good mobility. And last but not least, this is what I'm going to talk about now. For all this, you definitely need energy supply, a sufficient energy supply, and for the Arctic region based on renewable energy. So the energy supply is needed and is basic for this development as we see it, for improving the fishing, for improving the minerals, and to create more tourism into your region. What challenges is there about it, of course? Yeah, what's need to be solved? First of all, it needs money, and who is going to invest, and how to finance it? Who will finance it? And if you finance your energy infrastructure, what problems may arise in it if it's based on renewable energy and if it's based on fluctuating demand, meaning that there is not always the same load in the grid or in the energy network itself. So that's why we in Siemens has introduced this concept power from day one, where we would like to take care of it and then mutually explore it so that you eventually are based on renewable energy if that's needed. We see this as, and this might become a bit technical, I apologize, but it's not easy to show it otherwise. For the Arctic region, we see you have to have a multiple supply. You will have to have, as you have it today, based on hydropower, and you will have also a basic need for storage. Storage in terms of heat for the cities where you have infrastructure and district heating. And we can also say that you have the possibility here to build in photovoltaics. The photovoltaics are very interesting in all the energy world of today. You will see it in the US and in bigger networks worldwide. The integration of photovoltaics also gives the biggest challenges going forward, because the radiation into the photovoltaics only happens when the sun shines. As you can see on the green at the bottom of this line, Greenland has possibility to photovoltaics, as curious it may seem to you, but there is possibility also for you to use it. And then, of course, you have the possibility for wind power. You have tested the first mills, I've learned. And all this should then, whatever you decide, in those microgrids or bigger grids that you have to build, should then have the possibility to have the gas-fired power plants to secure a constant load into the network, to secure that your networks is stable, and if you have industries that they can rely on the power supply. Without power supply, there will be no production. So what I try to show on the lower side of this graph is actually that if you see the orange line, this is the PV generation over a typical day here in Greenland, and then how the load profiles will be over a 24-hour period. So there are some busy constraints in such a network that has to be solved. That's not easy. Has it been done somewhere else in the world? Yes, definitely. We have tried it out now in the Scandic region, where the politician decided to take away fossil-powered power plants in order to reduce the emission of CO2. This gives us, especially in Denmark now, a 55% production of wind energy into the network. And this cost us a lot of new solutions to be found in order to make the grid stable. I will, on the next slide, only show you a very few of those issues. The first of them is that variable generation is not easy to handle, as I mentioned. The wind power is only generated when the wind blows, when the sun shines, and the capacity and the consumers are not aware of it. So you have to build up a systematic where you can cope with these items. And there's also some technical issues about the frequencies in the network that has to be solved. And last but not least, you have to have a mature way of handling these issues, also in terms of payment from the consumers. Siemens has over the years built many such systems, and a proven way for us is to do it in the following, as showed here in the following graph. it might also be a bit busy, but it's actually how we see it. So projects follow always and should always follow such a project line as I described it up here, where you're very aware of what problems do you want to achieve with this network, who's to decide how it should be built, political-wise, should it be based on renewable energy all over or in southern parts, how should a backup system look like, how should it be implemented. And then you, of course, also have some design freezes in your system where you try to describe the processes as it goes along. And you have to find partners that understand the whole system and the issues in the system. And this is the approach that we want to do here for the Arctic region. If such systems should be built, we will be more than happy to leverage on the expertise we had with several such systems around the world, also with local EPCs that want to join with us, in order, and then also helping on the financing part of such a system, in order to meet the goals set up in the very beginning of such a project. We have now, and I think some of the other speakers will come back to that, been looking into how can we, out of hydropower, generate sufficient energy for a mine production here in Greenland. And how can we secure that this network will also produce energy in the years to come when the mining industry hopefully take off and needs more power. What is needed here is also that we are in a position where we can guarantee the output. So we stand behind our calculations and we can guarantee also that this will be the result of such a project. Typical time for such a project comes from 2 to 3 years. I heard my first bell, I have to. So what I see here is that there's a lot of opportunities being here 2 days with you. So I'm really here to say we want to help. We want to give you the expertise of 380,000 people worldwide, our employees. Not all of them have worked with these topics, but many of them has. And we want to cooperate with you on if it's exploring the fishing industry, is exploring the minerals as we have in the session today, or help with you with building an infrastructure that is attractive for tourism. If you have any questions here after the speak, I will be happy to introduce you to Carsten and to Bent Heuser, who is here also among the participants. So if you have any questions, please contact us. Thank you very much for your attention.